Here's a quick view on how to set up a website in Visual Studio for your ASP.NET projects. I'm going to take you through three main steps. First, I'm going to show you how to make a folder to hold your websites. Then we'll create a new website. We'll use the plain website and add a new page. If we go into Windows Explorer, and I set up a folder just on the desktop called Visual Studio Website. So this is going to hold all my websites. Then I'm going to load up Visual Studio, and inside Visual Studio I'll say File, New, Website. Now you can create a project, and a project is designed to hold several websites. But keep things simple and just go to a website. So I recommend going to the ASP.NET empty website. Also, just want to point out a few things that will remain once you set them. Is we want to use Visual Basic. Another popular language is Visual C, and that's very Java-like. But we're going to be using Visual Basic in this course, so use your Visual Basic. The .NET Framework is set up for version 4, but you can also go back to the earlier versions. Now the interesting piece is all of these frameworks are the same. They're all version 2.0 except with added features built on top of it. So 2.0 is the most simplest, and then through the years as Microsoft came out with new versions, they added more capabilities around the core 2.0. So you should probably, if you're using 2010, you'll come up with Framework 4. The other piece is down here. You can set up your file system, and so you can see that you can go HTTP or FTP. We're just going to use the file system, and then we're going to browse out to that folder that I made. You find my desktop. Here's my desktop. And here's my Visual Studio website. So again, I'm going to check Visual Basic, Net Framework 4, the empty website, and then pointing to the right folder where I want to store my new website in. Click on OK. And it's going to say, where do you want to store this website? Well, I'm going to put it in this folder, and I'm going to call it, this is going to be the name of my new folder now, so I'm going to put a SOL in front of it. And I'm going to give it a name so I can recognize it. That SLN stands for solution. So as soon as I see this folder, I'll know it's a Visual Basic solution folder, or a Visual Studio solution. Now notice again, I'm inside my Visual Studio website. This is where I'm going to store all my websites, and this solution is going to create another folder inside of this Visual Studio website folder. So here's my website. I'm going to go into the website, add a new item. Oh, that was a right mouse click. Add a new item. The add a new item window comes up, and we want to add a web form. So right on the top. Now Microsoft really likes to use the file name default.aspx, and my preference is to do what most other web people do and change that to index.aspx. The ASPX is the extension for ASP.NET. They couldn't use ASP because that's the old ASP language. They completely redid it for .NET, so they renamed the extension ASPX so there wouldn't be confusion between the two programming languages. We also want to put our code in a separate file, so make sure that box is checked. And right now we're not going to use master pages, although you'll learn how to use those in future modules. So back to web form and say add, and you can see here's our new web page. The web page comes up as pure code. There's some added features in here that ASP.NET uses, but here's the doc type set up as transitional, and you can see it's a standard web form.